Okay, starting point today is Inverloch, and we're heading east today back towards my home, but we'll be stopping off at Tura. There's a new bakery, a historic bakery being restored, recommissioned, rebuilt. So we're going to go and check out the history with Anne, its new owner. See you there. Okay, this is Anne, and she's from the Rare Earth Studio Gallery next door. But Anne, you saw an opportunity here with the Red Pink Historic Bakery. It's a bit different from when you first took it on, I guess.
Yep, it is, yeah.
So how long has the project been
going?
5
years, yeah. So we've tipped over the 5 years. Yeah.
Right. So what we're seeing here is a sort of representation now. Obviously, it was clad in the corrugated.
It looked exactly like this. The only difference is that window wasn't there. We've put that window in.
Right.
Apart from that, it was just a totally closed-in red shed.
Yeah.
A housing it's called a Scotch oven.
A Scotch oven. Now this is particularly historic. The Scotch oven.
Yeah.
We'll come and see that in a moment. Yeah. But tell us about the history of the bakery itself. How long ago did it close down?
Well, if we go back even a step further, it was built in the 1890s,
right,
about the same time as the pub down here, the Royal Standard Hotel. And it's a wood-fired oven in there, what's called a Scotch oven, and it operated until about the 1970s or 80s with wood, which is unusual. Not many of these ovens lasted that long. There would be a bakery like this, an oven like this in every town in Australia virtually. This is what ovens like this provided the bread, but in about the 1960s, when the big bread companies
commercial
came in,
bakeries,
they had to change the whole way things are done, because bread had always been a very protected industry.
A bit like in France.
Absolutely, yes, it's similar to that.
Yeah.
So the only way they could make sure, the big companies could make sure that they weren't breaking the rules about that existed about bakers only being able to distribute their bread within a certain perimeter of where their bakery was.
Sure.
They couldn't do that because they were producing so much. So their solution was to buy those bakeries up and destroy the ovens. So sometimes people they'd buy the building, and then one day they'd just arrive and they'd smash the oven up. Because I think they knew how good the bread that came out of these ovens was. And so they wanted to make sure that they weren't here so people couldn't go back to bread from there.
Crazy.
But this one, there's a few of them around. There's a few just in buildings that aren't being used, but there's very few that have actually been brought back to life, because this is what it's taken 5 years and a lot of money, and a lot of time and a lot of effort to to get one back to the stage of being able to be used.
Sure.
So it closed down it shut down from making bread in that oven in about the 1970s, and then here you can see this is the baker's residence. So
right.
This house is where the baker always lived, and on the far side of that is the baker's shop. That was where it was the tea rooms, and that was where the bread was sold from.
Right.
So what they did was they just shut down the brick oven. They bought electric ovens and moved them into the shop, and they did the baking and the selling from the shop, which is what bakeries all are now.
Right.
They're all just in the one building. But yes, when I bought the property, I suppose, I don't want to say on a whim, because it wasn't a whim, but it arose as a possibility, and it was the only time in my life that I had both the money and the time, because I was retired, to take on a project like this.
Yeah.
And so I put my gallery, which had already existed in Tura, I put that over there into the
old shop.
The shop.
Yeah.
And we've just kept working away, and it's taken this whole 5 years with no breaks, no stops, no rest.
Even through COVID.
COVID held us up in that the architect who took on the design of the building, of course, we've added this whole part's new.
Right. Okay.
So we had an architect to design all that, and she, being very conscientious, she didn't want to take on a project like this until she knew how successful bakeries like this operated, what was necessary. So she was locked down during COVID.
Sure.
So that kept us, we couldn't go ahead until COVID was over, and she was able to visit. There's a bakery in Trentham called Redbeard Historic Bakery.
Right. Okay.
They've got a very similar setup. So
yeah.
So
So off to the side here, that's new
That's all
area.
brand new. That's
Yeah.
all brand new.
That wouldn't have been in the original footprint.
No.
Okay, cool. Okay. So you've got quite extensive decking area out here. They're allowed to.
Yeah, we have. What
Working.
was the idea is these guys will tell this. How many screws in this deck again?
6,000.
6,000. Right. Okay.
And they're still talking to me. So.
Right.
We
Okay.
thought, I had a very good planner, town planner involved in the process as
Yeah.
well, and she really felt that a big decking like this you could use to, that you could do all sorts of things here that would be good for the town. You know,
Sure.
it brought the whole building closer to the street.
Yeah.
and-
No, it's
Yeah.
going to be. Oh, crikey!
Yeah.
Lovely summer's day or spring day. It's going to be beautiful out here, isn't it? All right. Well, let's pop on in. See what we got. Was it only ever going to be the original style of cladding outside, or
No.
did you ever consider something else?
No, I never considered anything else.
Right.
I really, I think it was that, I'm a very visual person. I've only been a painter
you're
since
not.
I was later in life, but I know I've got a gallery. Visuals, really, aesthetics are very important to me, and the building was just. I just thought it was absolutely beautiful, even though it was a bit,
Sure,
tumbled
sure.
down. So, no, I never had any idea of doing anything but keeping it as much as I could like it had been for those 130 years.
Wonderful.
Plus
Wonderful.
I like corrugated and I like red, so
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
So,
this is some
can we-
amazing.
can I- oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want me to can I suggest where we
Let's go
start?
for it. Go
Is that
for
right?
it. Yeah.
It's just that this is where it all
Yeah, it's quite a. So, how many would they have been pumping? How many loaves would they have been pumping out back in the day?
Oh, well, good question. It can cook, 300 loaves at once. Have you seen
How
inside?
many?
300. Have you looked inside?
We did. Yeah, I just got
Were you
a
able
few
to
shots.
see how big it is?
I did. I
Yes,
think
it's massive.
it's
Did
right
you
back
see
there.
the dome?
So, how far back? That's a good 15
It's-
foot or something.
It's
Well, how many
20
meters?
foot, 4 metres square.
4 metres.
Yeah.
Oh, right,
And
wow.
apparently it's on the big side for these ovens. They're always big, but there's some that are slightly bigger and some that are slightly smaller. And according to people I've spoken to, this one is quite a big one.
Now, I've heard that there was some issue with some original piece that was rusted through, and you had to take it somewhere to get it re.
Probably it was these. These doors they look old, but they're not.
Right.
These
Had to
are
go
new.
to Castlemaine or something.
We had to go to
wasn't
Castlemaine.
Yes.
So these doors have been. This is what's called. This is the firebox. This is what makes a Scotch oven a Scotch oven. It means that unlike a pizza oven, which a lot of earlier ovens were based on,
Yeah.
where you've just got one chamber.
Yes.
So you light the fire, push the coals away, and
Yeah.
cook your food. This was a revolution in the Industrial Revolution, actually, and it happened in Scotland, where they worked out a way to have the fire here
Yeah.
separated from the chamber where the bread's cooked. So there was never this issue of having to move the coals out of the way.
Sure.
They could keep it going.
Okay.
Yeah. And so interestingly,
And what we got two. We got up and
yeah, that's
up and
just so the logs go in there
Yeah.
and burn. This wall doesn't go all the way through to the back; it just
Okay.
goes, and so the ash just falls through
Oh, right,
down
yeah,
into
yeah.
there, and you clean it out. So,
Awesome.
so these doors were beyond repair. So
Okay.
we had to have them removed, and they're all twisted and rusted. And we drove them up to Billman's Foundry in Castlemaine. Very, very few people still do this work, and they, in an old traditional mould, they cast the new doors.
Yeah.
And they asked me, they said, would you like anything written on it? And I said, well, yes, let's put the name in. So,
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
So, and you wanted to throw a name in there? You said. We mentioned it.
Well, the first thing that we did was sort of see if the oven could be rehabilitated.
Yeah.
And there's really only one person in Australia who, he's accepted as the guru for all these things. His name's Dennis Benson. He's over 80 now, lives in Queensland. But he has been involved in every one of these ovens that's been rehabilitated in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
It's been Dennis that's called in from all over Australia
Wonderful.
to see, number one, can it be fixed? Is it too far gone? And if it can be fixed, well, he fixes it. So he came down here for 2 periods of 2 weeks and worked with a local bricklayer, and they did an enormous amount of work fixing the chimney and doing all sorts of things.
And obviously there's a lot of new pointing and whatever around. What did we know of the brickwork that was here?
When I first thought about buying the building, I had a structural engineer come over and look at the building, because you know some of the walls are bowed from the heat and that sort of thing. And I said to him, "Is this building sound or is it not sound?" He said, "It's absolutely sound, no problems." The architect engaged another structural engineer when she took over the work, and he said, "Yes, it's absolutely fine." When the builders actually came to taking off the old tin and timber part at the front, these old walls, which had stood here very happily for 130 years, once the roof was taken off, they all started to go a bit like that.
Sure.
So another structural engineer, the outcome was pull the walls down and rebuild them for $80,000. Use as many of the original bricks as you can, and then we buy old red bricks to make up the difference. So some of these bricks are old, but some of them are new. But I'm really thrilled.
New old though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Old new.
Recommissioned old.
The old red bricks. Yeah. Which cost more.
Up in Reservoir yesterday, and there's the brick reclamation place there, and you just see these chaps just laboriously chipping away at the old paint and the old render and what have you. So that's where that's where the money goes into using these old bricks, isn't it?
We had a team of, I think, 8 brickies came down from Melbourne, and they were just a fantastic team, and they're throwing bricks up one at a time to the guys up on the scaffold. It was really fabulous to watch. Yeah. Something that's new in here is that window is new, and this window is designed so that when people are in the cafe, they can look in here and see this. They can see the bakers working.
Sure.
Or they can see the beautiful old, the original part of the building.
Are there many Scotch ovens still running in Scotland?
Do you know, I think they're, as I understand it, it's just the process that was...
the Scotch element.
And what happened, I think this is very interesting actually, as Australia was developing and other countries were developing, America, these teams of, why they're called Scotch ovens, these teams of guys from Scotland who knew how to build these things would travel all around and they'd work with local bricklayers. But they would build these, and they're all over Australia, and mainly built by teams of Scottish oven builders.
Is there anybody in the town that recalls, or there's still plenty of old residents around that they can recall the bread and the taste of the bread? And...
Absolutely. I've heard so many people tell me they remember coming here as kids and getting the bread, and they all talk about, it's amazing, they all talk about pulling the centre out of the bread and eating it on the way home and getting into trouble because there's big bits missing out in the middle of the loaf. But
I'm a crust man myself, but there you go.
Great stories about, guys coming home from dances at the hall and the bakery, late at night, and the bakery's firing up, and they're coming in their suits and everything, and the man that was the baker then was a terrific bloke, and they'd come in and warm up and he'd give them some fresh bread.
Right.
There's been lots of good stories.
Great stuff. Yeah. Okay, that's old. Was it still here?
Yeah, this
was it the original one?
This is original.
Oh, wow.
This is original. What it is, it's called a pyrometer, and it was basically the thermometer for the oven.
Okay.
And it's interesting, it says here, manufactured by Small and Chattel bakery engineers.
Street.
Johnson Street, Fitzroy.
Wow,
so they're one of the biggest. If you see one of these ovens, it's more likely to have been made by Small and Chattel than anyone else. There were other companies because Tura's never been a big town. Tura's never been a big town, and it's got a bakery this size. There'd be towns that would have 2 or 3 of these. Or multiple ovens. Yeah, so we're very thrilled with the way that came up.
So will you be supplying other towns, food works or anything, or small shops or whatever? Is that the intention?
I think so. I think though The idea of having a cafe next door, the concept has always been that most of what you will be eating in the cafe, and it'll be, it won't be open at night, it won't be a dinner place, it'll be breakfast and lunch, that most of the menu will be designed around what comes out of the oven.
Yeah.
So that's the plan. So that'll probably be Capucine's first responsibility, is to make sure that there's the bread to provide the food on the menu.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, we'll be selling, bread directly to people who just want to buy bread,
Sure.
But definitely, wholesale. We've had a few people contact us already and say, we'd love to have it if you,
Great stuff.
Yeah, when it's ready.
Well, you'll probably be the only bakery in the area that's using proper old style baker
There's not another
oven.
one.
Sorry.
Yeah. There's
Everybody
not
else
another
is
one
using
for,
electric. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that going to change the flavour at all?
They say that it's a bit of a look. It's physics, I suppose. It's science. It's just the way it's the chemical or physical reaction that happens inside that stone, that brick oven.
Yeah.
And I didn't say to you, but under here there's tons of sand, and over the top there's tons of sand, and that's the thermal mass that keeps the heat.
Yes.
So the fire's over there the fire's in that firebox that you saw. This is the flue, and by opening and closing this, you draw the the flame
over the top and
over that. Yes.
Yeah,
and that creates a situation inside there that cooks things in a way that nothing else can replicate.
Yeah, sure.
Gas can't replicate. You can get good bread out of gas ovens and electric ovens, but this is apparently, next level.
Beautiful. Okay, cool. So what time are you going to be baking from and until then? They're not around all day, are they, the baker? They're coming in at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the
If you're
morning?
going to sell fresh bread, the idea is that you bake it during the night and then it's ready to sell in the morning. I'm going to, my role in this has been just being able to be in a position to have bought the building and stuck at getting it saved and getting it here. From the word go, we've had a baker involved, a French woman, a young French woman, who had all her life wanted to be an artisan baker. And I met her 3 weeks after I bought this. So I had a bakery and no intention of running it. She wanted to be a baker, so she's been on board ever since.
Awesome.
So she spent time in France getting accreditation as a baker, and she and her husband will be running it. So what they actually do, I'm not absolutely certain, but I'll be handing the building over to them in probably about a month or two.
That's wonderful.
And then they'll be running it. Yeah. There's been lots of sort of unusual coincidences about this project, and Capu was one of them. She, I think the question I was asked the most for about the first 3 years was, where are you going to get a baker from? How are you going to find a baker? Have you got a baker? And people thinking that would be very hard. And I was always able to say, we've got a baker actually. And they go, oh, so yeah, we've had a baker on board from the word go. But
Excellent.
That she stuck with it, the idea for 5 years. Yeah. You're right, I feel very lucky. And she's going to be running it with her husband.
There's been some sort of government help along the way. How does that work?
We started off without the idea of having any grants. My experience with grants is that you never get them, it's never the right time, you've always just missed a round or the next round's in 6 months. But I just happened to see that there was a grant coming out through the Regional Tourism Infrastructure Fund for fairly major projects. And so I looked at it and we ticked all the boxes, of what they were looking for. They're looking to develop tourism in the regions. It ticked the history box. So we held up the building for quite a while. We made the decision we're going to go for this grant because it was $325,000, that's $1 from the government for every 4 of mine.
Right. Wow.
So, but it was a great help.
Sure.
It was a great help. And to me, who's never...
There's some commitment, Anne, from your part.
Yeah, look, I suppose it is. It's interesting to hear people say that because I suppose that's true, but I never really think of it that way. I just think I was lucky that this just happened to come onto my radar, and I thought, what I'm just going to see if I can do that. Yeah. And it's worked. Yeah. So, we're not quite there yet, but I think we can see.
So when I'm going to be ordering my first loaf of bread or when? Yes.
Okay, good. Now, we had a
So
site
what are we
meeting.
now? What are we? Bang at the end of June at the moment. Yeah.
We had a site meeting yesterday, and at which our builder told us that the revised date for the building to be handed over is the 30th of July.
Okay.
Which sounds great. That's probably up to our 9th or 10th finish date. Because you know what the environment's like
Sure.
at the moment with tradesmen
Yeah.
and costing and all sorts of things. But I think that's probably going to be pretty much, that'll be it.
Right.
And then I'll hand over to Kapu and Josh. They have to get on top of this oven.
Right.
Because this will take probably a month of small fires, like gradually getting bigger to dry it out because there's a lot of moisture in it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, so it won't be ready to cook anything in for probably a month.
Wow. Right.
And then
okay.
she has to learn how to control the oven, and so it's hard to say when you'll actually be, buying bread that comes out of it. But if we're pretty sure it'll be in some form. It might be quite simple, but by this summer, this coming summer.
By summertime. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
I think so.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much for showing us about, and
Pleasure.
yeah, I look forward to. This is about 20 minutes down the road from my house, so I'll be getting my loaf of bread from here in summertime.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Anne.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks. Since visiting the site, a lot's been happening. Not only have the plasterers been in, but the ovens have been lit in a process that's designed to dry it out after years of non-use. That's going to take a month or so of daily firing up before the first dough can be put in the oven. Won't be long now.